Welcome to Philadelphia, where history thrives and where you can be completely immersed in what this great city has to offer. Explore cobblestone streets in Old City, visit Independence Hall, and surround yourself with cultural richness. From world-class pieces at the Museum of Modern Art to the birthplace of the iconic Philly cheesesteak, Philly invites you to one of the most diverse and free cities in America. Experience unity in the city of brotherly love. Discover traditions, history, and vibrant culture on every corner. And if you're looking for a place to call home, Kensington welcomes you with its unique charm and a warm sense of community. So what are you waiting for? Come and be a part of the Philadelphia story.
Lost Ox Media.
Hey yo, what the fuck?
There's something happening in Philly, something that's stripping it of its once great identity. The ripened land that our forefathers previously defended in the name of freedom has now become the stomping grounds for low-life drug dealers and an impoverished homeless population that have almost all become prisoners of their own addictions. But this really isn't even new information. As long as I can remember growing up in South Jersey, I was always told to be careful of where you end up in Philly, and that was because of its crime and rapidly growing drug problem. But now there's a somewhat new drug called Trank hitting the open-air drug market of Kensington. That's not only taking the city by storm, it's also a catalyst for one of the quickest gentrification plans in Philly's history. It almost seems like the city of Philly and the University of Temple have some kind of unspoken agreement to push all of the have-nots into one concentrated area. But why? Well, most signs point to gentrification. Could gentrification rebuild this poverty-stricken area? Yeah, probably, but at whose expense? Who suffers the most when a city essentially gives up on a group of its citizens, all for some contractor to have the opportunity to buy up real estate at the bottom only to sell it at the top? And disguise all of this with juice bars, white people with dyed hair, and tiny dogs. And how does a $5, 5-letter drug like Trank play such a huge role in the city's plans to gentrify the area of Kensington by any means necessary? Why would a rich and/or powerful entity want to gentrify areas like the ones surrounding Kensington, or any rundown parts of any city for that matter? Well, the answer is money, plain and simple. You see, if someone wants to invest in a city or sector that is crime-ridden, run down, or maybe has a high homeless population, to the average person, that may not seem like a good investment. Most people would know that the property values in that area are going to be horrendous, and typical investors would view the amount of money it would take to renovate as a very poor decision based on ROI. But if you were, let's say, a university, or the city that these bad areas happen to be in, well then, now you have a slew of resources and money to turn this into a long-term investment that will probably double at the very least. And that's kind of what's happening right now in the areas surrounding the infamous open-air drug market on the corner of Kensington and Allegheny, also known as K&A. This area of Kensington has some of the worst open-air drug usage in the country, only to be rivaled by that of San Francisco's Tenderloin District, or pretty much anywhere in Portland. Areas like this are a gentrifier's wet dream. The fact that police do nothing to put a stop to the drug usage means that any given time of day, you may find the streets of K&A looking like this. Needless to say, no one likes to see these things in their everyday lives, but some people have no other choice due to their financial situations. The reality of the matter is, these areas and the people in them need help, and you better believe the city is going to provide that help. But first, a bunch of people gotta get rich, and it's not gonna be any of the people that are going through it. So in steps a man with a gentrification plan. In this plan, it states that all of Kensington and even beyond can be a trendy new place to live. Safe and serene, where juice bars and yoga studios can be found on every corner, and where the area's average income will finally be good enough for a Whole Foods. The plan will bring in a new wave of tourism and residents, all with net worths that would probably make you sick if you knew them. And best of all, those people will all be paying taxes to the city on houses and businesses that they bought at top dollar. And just like that, the city is rolling in it. And since the man with the plan was the one that bought up all the property and businesses when they were at their lowest point, well, he just made a boatload of money as well. Now, none of that plan really sounds all that bad. Like, yeah, a couple people are going to get filthy rich, but it sounds like the area would be thriving if everything else goes the way that it should, right? That is, until you realize what the city has to ignore for these property values to go down so low, and how the people and businesses will inevitably move out of the area in droves because of it. Tranq. Tranq is short for tranquilizer, and it comes in liquid form. It was initially used as a sedative for animals in veterinarian type situations. Animals like horses. The scientific or official name for it is xylazine, and the same sedative effects an animal would get from being tranquilized are essentially what happens to people when they take it. It works as a vasoconstrictor, which constricts the veins and makes it harder for the body to circulate blood. And apparently, it feels amazing. Kensington is currently riddled with the stuff, but it's been around for like 6 years. It's only just recently become such a huge problem in the Kensington area, primarily in the open-air drug market of K&A, and it's not pretty. Some of the effects of xylazine are loss of appetite, a simulated state of rest, and euphoria, but you don't have to take my word for it.
Tranq makes me feel like I'm asleep.
A lot of the homeless population in Kensington are taking to this drug for the simple fact that
This shit's different, like totally different. This shit is fucking different, like.
And its addictive quality might not even be the worst part about the drug. You see, when people inject the drug into their veins, it more than often leads to a flesh-eating infection that typically won't heal on its own. Almost as if the very poison that you're injecting into your body is trying to get out of your body through the shortest and weakest point of exit. Tranq is pretty much the one thing that's pushing the gentrification process along in Kensington, because no one seems to want to do anything about it. If you're high on drugs or even using drugs in the open streets of K&A, the cops will just turn a blind eye. Yet you will always see cops patrolling the area there, but you'll rarely see cops patrolling the corner of Lehigh Ave and Kensington Ave. It's almost as if they're trying to confine the people to just that perimeter. And I say that because Lehigh Ave is just 6 blocks down the street from K&A. But what you'll see, for lack of a better term, is essentially a normal neighborhood. In some of the areas surrounding K&A, you'll see an almost night and day difference to that of the open-air drug market that sits so close to these neighborhoods that don't have the same drug issues. K&A has permanently closed down businesses, abandoned houses, and more drugs than you could shake a stick at. But just down the street, the only houses that are empty are all for sale. There are juice bars and gyms and coffee shops everywhere, along with other businesses, and there are really no homeless people. Police don't tend to patrol those areas as hard as they would at K&A. And it's kind of crazy to think that it's mostly one drug, Tranq, that's bringing it all down. The whole house of cards. But I couldn't think of a better way to capitalize on the downfall of a subsidy than to gentrify it. The drug epidemic brings the people in that area down, which in turn brings down the property value, which in turn causes residents and businesses to move elsewhere, more than likely far, far away from their current cities. So now all the residential and business properties go way down in value due to the fact that practically nobody wants to live there. This is a great opportunity for an investor to come in and start buying cheap properties to renovate, just like the ones we just saw down the road from K&A. These are prime examples of what happens to a gentrified area. It wouldn't surprise me if soon this very thing is happening at the corner of K&A, where cops and the city would then enforce drug laws only after the area is well bought out and well cleaned up. I mean, K&A has already checked off part 1 in the gentrification process. Bring the people and the property value down to the lowest point possible. So now that we know why someone would want to gentrify this area, and we know how the gentrification process started, the next question would be, who would want to buy up all that property once it's hit its lowest point? Temple University is an R1 public university that aims to challenge the status quo and play a major role in changing the world for the better, one gentrified city block at a time. You see, Temple, believe it or not, has a huge hand in this whole gentrification thing that's happening in Kensington. It's not just the city's neglect that's happening here. There has to be a motive, right? Well, let's think about the fact that Temple is a pretty expensive place to go to school, but it's also always been known as a fairly dangerous place to go to school. Normally, universities like this will have their own police force, but that police force can only do so much if the university is surrounded by predominantly bad areas. Areas like North Philly, where Temple is located. In fact, it's less than 4 miles away from the corner of K&A. So naturally, this poses a problem for a university with such a high tuition rate. But Temple has actually thought about this. They've attempted to stay on top of that in the past decade or so by expanding the boundaries of its police force and buying up properties surrounding the campus. Properties that then turn into off-campus student housing and swanked out luxury apartments, spreading the gentrification like a disease outward from the host university. In fact, the current boundary for the Temple police force almost borders the neighborhood of Kensington where the trank epidemic is taking place. And ironically enough, almost all of the companies doing the buying, renovating, and gentrifying are shell companies run by Temple University. So now the real question is, what does Temple have to gain from all of this? Once again, the answer is money. That's what makes the world go round. Their tuitions can remain high as they promise a safe place to go to school, and they also increase their asset portfolios while simultaneously renting and selling off properties. While the city just looks at it as a way for someone to take the bill for cleaning up the area, and the city just has to sit back and collect taxes from the new wave. But the population of homeless on that small chunk of Kensington Ave at the corner of Allegheny serve as a reminder that these types of problems can't just be swept under the rug or pushed further out, not without some real human suffering. These issues have to be systematically dealt with, but the harsh truth is, they probably won't get fixed. Not in Philly, at least. The incentive is way too strong to make a killing off of this. Whether it be the drug dealers dealing the trank, Temple University, or the city getting kickbacks, someone somewhere has got to get paid before any moves can be made. Sadly, you get a hell of a lot more back on your return if you just rebuild an already destroyed area and push the problems outside the neighborhood perimeter, rather than individually treating all these people to then see no return once they're better. With gentrification, at least you can continuously receive the profits from the renovated part of town. That is, if you own all of it. And unfortunately, nothing is going to stop that train from rolling on. As long as America remains a free capitalist nation, the monetary incentives will tend to win over moral superiority. That's just the way that it is. But I'm not here to provide a solution. I just thought I would tell you about this so that you know things like this happen in the world all the time. Thanks for taking the time to watch if you've made it this far. I got a decent amount of information from researching this online, but I got a huge amount of information from a YouTube channel called Channel 5 with Andrew Callahan. Be sure to check out his video titled Philly Streets. I'll leave a link to that in the description. It goes way more in depth on where Trank comes from, first-person accounts on the gentrification happening in Philly, and how Philly's history of racism pretty much primed it for the gentrification that it's seeing today. And if you want to support my channel, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. It's a completely free way to support the channel, and it helps these videos reach as many people as possible. This has been a Lost Ox Media production. Until next time, thanks for watching.